Hey everyone, my name is Matt from endsickness.org. Today I'm going to tell you how less supplements can actually make you feel better. And this is something you must know because most people are on 10, 15 different supplements when they have a chronic illness or they have autoimmune disease. And they say, I have to be on these supplements. I need them. The doctor said I need them. But if you stop taking them, often I see people see benefits. They see a reduction in symptoms. Why is this? I'll go into this during the video. First, let me say I'm not a medical doctor. It's just not medical advice. It's based on my personal experiences for informational and educational purposes only. So supplements, how would less supplements make you feel better? Well, the problem is when you have chronic illness, typically you have an overactivation of mast cells, and your mast cells are the ones that are responsible for your chronic inflammatory symptoms. So your mast cells, they don't like synthetic chemicals, all right? Synthetic chemicals like synthetic fragrances, synthetic anything. And the reality is most of these vitamins are synthetic vitamins. You know, vitamin C is ascorbic acid, that's a synthetic form of vitamin C. You know, vitamin B12, 99% of them out there are synthetic. Almost all the vitamins that you see out there are synthetic. If they don't say plant-derived or plant-based, then you have a vitamin that could potentially set you off, okay? So what people do is they take this vitamin, they take this up and they say, oh, well, I feel better. I felt better initially when I took it, but then a couple weeks into it, their body develops a sensitivity to the nutrient itself, to the vitamin because it's synthetic, and they start reacting and say, well, why am I feeling worse? I don't know what it is, but I've been feeling worse lately. But the reality is they've developed a sensitivity to the supplement itself, and now they're taking the supplement every single day. It's what I've seen over and over again with clients. They'll contact me and they'll be on 12 different supplements. The first step that I gotta do with these clients is I gotta remove the supplements. I gotta minimize the supplements down to the absolute bare minimum, or ideally no supplements, to see how they're responding to their food, how their symptoms are without all these supplements in the mix. And what I've seen over and over again is when we remove these 10, 12 supplements, often people feel better than they did when they were on them. And they're kind of astonished. They don't really understand because they were told that these supplements were helping them. But the reality was they were actually irritating their immune system over the long term. And most of these people have compromised detox systems. You know, if you have a chronic illness, often you have a compromised detox system, compromised liver, kidneys, gut, etc. And what happens is these synthetic vitamins and these multi-ingredient formulas often irritate the mast cells. They compromise the gut. They impair the detox system, and they cause chronic inflammation when they're supposed to do the opposite. But the reality is you can't just, you can't judge a vitamin based upon what you hear about the vitamin. You know, oh, B12 does this, so it must be good for me. No, it's not that simple, okay? B12 in its natural form may be good for you, but a synthetic B12 is not the same thing as B12 in its natural form. Trust me, I've used plant-based vitamins, I've used synthetic vitamins. They feel very different. And the plant-based vitamins will actually build up your storages of nutrients, so replace your deficiencies. The synthetic vitamins are just gonna leave you dependent on them, just like synthetic medication. When you cut out the vitamin, you're gonna go back down like you're doing if it was providing you any benefit. But the reality is if you have a chronic illness, you gotta second guess these supplements. You gotta start off with 0 supplements and eat food and see what foods are triggering you. Because if you don't know what foods are triggering you and you're covering it up with supplements, you'll be in an endless cycle of eating something, reacting, trying to cover it up with supplements, eating something, reacting, trying to cover it up with supplements. And even if you're living in a house that has mold, you're living in a house that has mold, trying to cover it up with supplements, try to cover it up with supplements. The reality is you have to figure out what the root cause is. And you can't do that when you're attempting to mask things with supplements and medication. That's what will leave you in the endless loop, trying to figure this out, unable to figure out the root cause because you haven't simplified down to 0 supplements, 0 medication, plants, fruits, vegetables, rice, potatoes, beans, simplify with the elimination diet, elimination of the supplements. Then you know what symptoms are left. Then you could identify, is this being caused by what I'm eating, by what I'm inhaling, by what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, etc. And then after you get that stability, then you start adding supplements in. Then you add the plant-derived supplements, the one that are actually derived from real plants, not derived from a lab. And then at that point, you can start to heal. But before you try to add supplements in, you got to get all the irritants out. You can't go ahead and try to simply, you know, get over the chronic illness just by taking more and more supplements. That is not the ticket at all. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, go to my website, endsickness.org. I got hundreds of articles, hundreds of videos on there teaching you how to heal yourself. Thanks for watching.